Everybody, thank you for joining us for the Bureau of Household Goods and Services Advisory Council meeting today. My name is Rita Wong. I'm the Deputy Bureau Chief. I am somewhat speaking on behalf of Nicholas Oliver, who's present. Our chief has a cold, and so he's not going to be doing as much speaking today. Welcome also those of you who are joining us on the phone. We're going to go through some facility details, I guess. If there's any emergency here at the in-presence advisory council, there are two exits to this room. One over where you probably all came in, the double doors on the side, and then there's an exit in the rear back here too, in case of an emergency. If anybody needs to use the restrooms, they are out the double doors to the right and then down the hall. Let's start with roll call. We don't have very many council members present today, so this should be short and sweet. Again, I'm Rita Wong, the Deputy Bureau Chief.
Nicholas Oliver, Bureau Chief.
Pascal Beniamini.
Steve Weidecamp, California Moving and Storage Association.
Chris Sigden, California Moving Systems.
Okay, thank you. Can I have those on the phone, please chime in and let us know who's listening?
Michael Lindstedt.
Good morning, Michael.
Lucas.
Good morning.
Judy Levin.
Good morning.
David Yarbrough.
Good morning, David.
Antoinette Stein.
Thank you. Good morning.
Bert Grimes. Robert Hook with Barco.
Okay, I heard Bert Grimes, and then what was the second one?
It's Robert Hook, and I'm with Barco Manufacturing.
Okay, good morning, Robert.
Good morning. Brad Miller.
Brad Miller. Good morning.
Zena Gerard from Pier 1 Imports.
Good morning.
Dave Kagan with Bethma.
Good morning, Dave. Do we have anybody else on the phones who hasn't chimed in yet for introducing yourselves?
Experience.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? That was a little muffled.
Aaron Sireman with the Moving Experience.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning. Is that all for the phone lines? Okay, thank you. We're going to discuss briefly what potential dates we can schedule for our next advisory council meeting. Potential dates that we have on the books are July 18th or July 25th. Does the council have a preference for either of those 2 days?
Either are fine. Yeah, I'm good either.
Either's fine.
Okay, all those present say that either is fine. Does anybody on the phone have any conflicts that would prefer one date over the other?
July 18 works for Dave Penning. July 25th does not.
Okay. Anyone else?
Either one, this is Judy, would be okay.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
Yeah, same for me. This is Michael Lindstedt.
Okay.
18 works for me. 25 does not. Dave Yarbrough.
Okay, so that's 2 no's for 25, so I think we're going to stick with July 18th if everybody's okay with that.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
This is Nicholas. Are there any items from the November council meeting that the public, any council members or listeners or visitors here would like to discuss? If not, we'll go ahead and move into the agenda. We'll have Karen Munoz from the Budget Office at DCA give our budget update. Hello.
Hi, good morning. My name is Karen Munoz. I am the budget analyst that has been assigned to the Bureau recently, and today I'm going to go over 3 documents that you guys have in your package. The fund conditions for both, or for all 3, home furnishing, the electronic appliance repair, and home movers. Since the last meeting in November, I believe, the governor's budget has been signed, and your fund condition really has not changed as much. However, I do want to state that I have verified that the transfers for the home movers fund, those have been in as planned and scheduled, so we have received those. And going on to just electronic repair and home furnishing, the funds there are very flush. We have no concerns on the fund balance. You guys have a very functional fund on those parts. And with your home movers fund, I know that is a new fund within the Bureau this fiscal year. And so with that, we are monitoring that fund going forward. However, that one with revenues coming in, we don't see any issues with that fund as well. With that, if you guys have any questions regarding your fund, your budget?
No.
No questions? Okay. We'll go ahead and continue monitoring your budget and your funds, and if there's any questions or any concerns towards the end of the fiscal year, we'll definitely reach out to Nicholas and Rita.
Great,
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next will be our personnel update from Renetta. Renetta is our HR analyst.
Good morning. My name is Renetta Buckner, HR liaison, and I am here to report on recruitment activities since the last council meeting of August 2nd? November, yeah, that felt off, sorry. All right. We have begun the recruitment process for 1 flammability research test engineer and 1 research data specialist. So the research data specialist is a 2-year limited term position that will support the household movers program and will focus on the household movers fee schedule and max 4 tariff rate study. Candidates have been selected for the special investigator positions, and we are in the process of concluding the recruitment process. So that's it. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Renetta.
Okay, this is Rita Wong again. I'm going to give a brief update on outreach and consumer education at the Bureau. First off, I'm going to report some information that was provided by Michael Woodchick, who's actually running our webcast today, so he wasn't able to speak, but he did provide us some details regarding what Consumer Affairs has been doing to assist the Bureau in the virtual world, basically. The Public Affairs Office assisted the Bureau in changing the URLs and the branding for the Bureau's social media sites and conducted a social media campaign to raise awareness of the Bureau's name change since we've last met. Our Office of Publications Design and Editing has redesigned many of our online consumer brochures. They were previously branded as bare hefty materials, and now they're new, modern, printer-friendly fact sheets with the updated Bureau information. These sheets will be available for download on the Bureau's website, so you can look for those. Are they there now, or are they coming soon? They're coming soon, okay. Okay, PDE has also provided the Bureau with a social media collateral to highlight the Home Movers Program. The Bureau has participated in National Consumer Protection Week, March 3rd through the 9th, posting daily messages on the Bureau's Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn sites to highlight each of the 5 major programs under the Bureau's oversight: home movers, electronic repair, appliance repair, thermal insulation, and home furnishings. So thank you for that update. And then in addition, at the Bureau, we've been working on some education in the last few months. In particular, we have had a special investigator offer a training class for mattress sanitization. There was a trend that was seen with certain companies where they weren't using the correct process for sanitizing their mattresses that they were reselling. And so a class was offered to a large group of Northern California managers and a furniture company to teach them the appropriate way per law to sanitize mattresses. So that was probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, I believe. And so the next steps will be for investigators to go back out and ensure that all of the businesses that were taught are in fact utilizing the new and correct sanitization methods. In addition to that, we are planning some future outreach, specifically for the household movers. We're looking at the month of May, beginning application training classes. We're going to be offering workshops for any household movers who are struggling with getting licensing applications completed in that process, which is still quite a lengthy process, even though we've tried to trim it down a little bit. But we will be offering some workshops starting in May, and we'll probably be publishing some sort of either webinar or at least a PowerPoint or something so that those that can't attend a workshop can visit our website and learn about filling out the applications online. And that's all we have currently for education and outreach. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Yes, thank you, Steve Whiteycamp. Not really a question, but for the regulated moving, it does have a peak season that goes from May through August. May is National Moving Month, and I would strongly recommend that in our social media and in some event, we have some kind of event where we educate the public on using permitted carriers for the season right when they're in that decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. That's good advice. We'll definitely tackle that on the virtual front and in person. So,
I have a question, Steve.
Yeah.
Is there potential to work with the American Moving and Storage Association? Because I know they're very active on social media.
Right. Yeah, we can work on that side with them. When states have put together National Moving Month events that involve regulators and industry, they've tended to participate in that when they can. So if we develop some event, we might have national participation as well.
all right, any other questions? Anyone on the phone? Okay, Nicholas, what's next?
Sue from the lab. She'll give us an update on the directory, well, several things actually, so I don't,
I'm Sue. I'm from Ability Test and Research Engineer at the lab. I'm going to update the directory. Back here? Okay. I'm going to update the directory of certified installation materials. We just released the last update of this directory in February. The next update will be expected to be July. So basically we update twice a year. And I'm also going to report the NavLab on-site assessment. On January 28th and the 29th of this year, the Bureau's installation program went underwent its biannual assessment. This assessment was conducted by NAVLAB, which is a National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program. The assessment focused on all laboratory processes, including sample received, sample preparation, testing, data analysis, data validation, and finally reporting. Overall, the assessment went well. The lab currently submits responses to address auditors' few concerns, and so we expect to hear from them soon. So this is the update of a NAVLAB assessment. I continue. Okay, while I'm here, I would like to report the lab statistics. And during the period between July 1st, 2018 to March 1st, 2019, the lab received 69 samples for TB117 2013 tests. We found that 90% of the completed samples passed the TB117 2013 and 10% failed. The lab received 23 mattresses during the period. 83% of completed samples passed the 16 CFR 1633 and 17% of those samples failed. We received 4 thermal insulation samples, and we have not completed any samples. We received a total of 31 bedding samples. Among those completed samples, 79% passed and 21% failed, mainly because of the finished size and the labeling. And the lab also reviewed the labels attached to samples. 80% of them comply to all the requirements, and 82% of the labels have some deficiencies. The lab also checked AFR statements on TB117 2013 covered products. 65 samples checked the no AFR chemical box, and 4 samples checked the yes box. We require 23 samples. We sent 23 samples to DTSC to conduct AFR tests, and also request the documentations from the manufacturers. So far, there are 9 samples are still pending. 12 of them have no AFR chemicals over 1,000 ppm. 2 of them contain the AFR over 1,000 ppm. 74% of the manufacturers are able to provide satisfied documentations to prove that their products do not contain excessive AFR chemicals, and 17% of them do not comply. So that's my update of the lab stats. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Sue?
I have one.
Go ahead.
My apologies. Bert, go ahead.
Quick question. Interesting that obviously we look at labeling a lot, and 82% of the labels fail, which is the same exact statistic we got back in March of 18 last year in the 2000, which was the 2017 data, and that was also at 82%. How can we get our labeling so it is clearer what is expected on the labeling, so we don't have so many errors? Something that we can do, give better examples.
Okay.
That's what the workshop.
Sure. To address these problems, we thought we are working on some examples, going to put on the internet so the industry and the consumers know exactly what we're looking for. And most of those is like you could find the problems and you have some term not exactly meet the requirements. I think that could be addressed by being more let more people know what we're looking for, what mistake they made.
Okay. And also on the TV 117-2013, the 10% that failed, why did they fail? Was it labeling or?
This,
Told-
that failed the test. This is strictly for the testing.
Okay, the smoldering test?
Yes.
Okay.
So either their cover fabric failed or their filling material failed.
Okay. And then thirdly, do we have any idea on the chemical statements? Are those numbers that are failing, are they out-of-country product or domestic product?
I can get that number is for you later. And most of those is like we submit a request. Oh, you mean the DTSC test or the documentation? Okay.
Well, probably both.
Okay. The both is like for, I can address documentation is mostly as we requested that some overseas and the overseas and they do not respond or they didn't understand. So it's some miscommunication and they didn't provide some documents as requested. So I would expect the domestic is much better because it's like they usually address those problems quickly. And for the DTSC, I can get that data for you later.
Okay, thank you.
One question on the labeling, the 82% in the past. I
Fail.
believe the failure rate was mostly due to font size and actual size of the lines and what have you. Am I remembering correctly?
That's part of it.
Okay.
And also sometime because our law requires some specific terms, and so you do need to specify that's a pad, that's batting. So a lot of industry, they just don't know that requirement. So we're going to have those examples on website so people will know what exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so the failure rate for the past year and the reasons for that failure, have they been consistent with the prior years, or have you seen an uptick in certain categories?
It's always very high. I think you mean the label?
Yeah, in terms
Yeah.
of like the reasons why the failure, have they been consistent across the reasons why they fail?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is Judy. I was wondering, I see the asterisk that says the labeling includes all products except for thermal insulation. So that could include mattresses or bedding as well, is that correct? Do you know of those, how many relate to furniture versus mattresses?
That's all. That includes everything.
Okay, so we don't really know which sector it's most problematic in, or you could share that?
It's most of those, all have those minor deficiencies. And so the terms and the font issue, that's across the board. So that's basically, I would think that's a pretty representative to all kinds of products.
It might be helpful to know which sectors of those, like how many relate to mattresses and relate to furniture, because I know we have people who are interested in addressing that within their specific sectors.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I can work on that to get some breakdown.
Yeah, this is Michael, but maybe just going forward, that could be a standard part of your presentation that is broken down by category.
You mean the
You
label?
don't have to just follow up specifically with, like on Judy's or other questions, but it'll be more transparent for us to be able to see this.
Okay.
This is Rita. I have a question for the team, basically. In the past, we've had the question that was asked today regarding whether or not manufacturers that we're reporting on were inside the U.S. or outside the U.S. Is that something that you would like to see standard on our lab statistics going forward as well?
Yes, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. And I have a couple of questions too about this. So for these that fail the labeling, do you notify the company that's involved with that? And and give them like a reference as to how to correct it going forward or not? Or is there any kind of follow-up from them?
And yes, we submitted the label review to them, and some manufacturers, they will send their revised label for us to review, and some of other, if they don't submit to us, and we don't see their product. But next time is when we see that again, and we're gonna review their labels on the products.
Mm-hmm.
This is Bert Grimes. Is there a way that we could offer a label review to manufacturers before they actually get into trouble and have the incorrect information?
Bert, this is Nicholas. So if you have questions or any manufacturers have questions about their labels or want their label reviewed, we're happy to do that. So you can just send it in, email.
Yeah.
Who would
Yes,
be
submit it
the-
to our laboratory. Actually, right now, if the manufacturer send the label to us, we review it for them. And so it's more like a voluntary program.
Could we put something on our website if we have this service available?
Put on our website?
I mean, I don't know that that's something that will advertise on the website per se. I mean, if we do have manufacturers that utilize, I mean, they just call and ask questions and we volunteer to review it, but, you know, it's on a case-by-case basis, I
Yeah.
guess.
I guess you have to see the
I
work.
think it just seems to me that there's, labeling is such a big issue on what passes and what fails. I mean, we're 82% of them are incorrect. I think we need to, first of all, on the website, get rid of all the old label examples and get all the new and all the specific descriptions and everything else we're looking for, so the manufacturer can have a reference point that we can go to.
Right, as you know, Bert, and maybe some others don't, we did just have a labeling workshop, which we discussed these topics, and that was part of the regulatory process, which we are now in. We're writing regs, updating our labeling regs, which includes updating and providing new examples for manufacturers. So all of those will be, through the regulatory process. They'll be posted on the website, and we'll be updating the website to remove old labels that, aren't utilized, I guess, and aren't the correct labeling.
Okay. Do we have a timetable for that?
So we are planning to submit the fall. We're planning to submit the regulatory package for labeling by end of summer, sort of fall timeframe. And, then the process will begin. So, you'll have the public comment period. I don't know the full timeframe though, on how long it takes to be till it's effective. A year and a half?
Okay, at least sounds like we're moving forward.
Yeah, we're definitely moving forward on it. That's what the workshop was for, to kind of get the ball rolling on that as well.
Thank you.
So this is Michael, when was this workshop?
February 5th?
And were there a lot of people attending it, either like by phone or?
There were. Yeah, there were. The attendance was high.
It was a healthy discussion.
And we'll go over the workshop, kind of some just highlights of both the workshops we had, and a little bit on the agenda.
Okay, so, and, this is not an area that I have any expertise in, but it would seem like if you have outdated examples on the web and people don't know that they're outdated, it's not surprising that you have this kind of, 82% failure rate. And so I'm assuming once you get everything configured, the new regs up and ready, they'll be like some sort of like what's new type of thing, something that really highlights it on the web so that people will have that information and be like readily available with like a checklist that that people need to make sure that they follow to comply with it. Is that part of the planning to really highlight it there and make it available?
Yes, that's part of the plan as well.
Okay, all right. I have another question too. Just with respect to thermal insulation, there's no testing that you do for this. Is that correct?
You mean this period? Yes.
Well, okay, let me put it differently. How often do you do testing on, like flammability testing for thermal insulation?
The thermal insulation, it depends. We have E84 we contract out. That depends on how fast they can get it done. And also we have in-house testing for those R value. This period of time is dually because we have a NAVLAP, we have inspection, and we do some in-house sample testing. It's so that's why it's get delayed. How often it's I can get that data. We don't have a rigid plan, but it depends on when we request the sample, and it depends on how sometimes they submit it to us, and sometimes sample size not right, and we have to back and forth and get the right size. It take a while, and the conditioning, and also that's all. It's a very varied. So I can give you go back to more data and give you more clear data on that.
That's okay. I may just follow up with you directly about this later. You don't need to. Yeah, I'll just follow up with you directly about this.
Okay.
I'm just curious about. It sounds like that you contract some of this out in addition to doing this within your lab.
Yeah. Right.
And who are the contractors? Off the top of your head.
I have, but is that something we can talk about? I think it's the contract. Can we?
Yeah.
Okay. QAI, it's like they do the E84 for us.
Yeah, this is Don Lucas. I was just wondering how much you spend on E84 testing a year.
How much money?
Yes.
Is that contract, is that public or that's the private?
I'm not sure. It's public. Yeah. Do you know the contract amount for?
I know the number is.
Do you? Do you know, Sue?
You mean the number?
Yeah.
Okay, 850 per sample. I believe that's somewhere there, I think. Right.
But the total contract.
The total number? That's, it's a 2-year contract. I don't remember off my head.
We could get back to you on that.
Okay, I was just curious, a rough idea of how many tests you run a year.
Yeah, we can look. I'll have Sue could check into that, see how many tests we've done in the during the contract period. I don't know where we are on that contract, how far we're in. Do you know, Diana? Okay, so it expires in April, so we can give you the numbers for this contract period, which is essentially 2 years.
Yeah, Nicholas, this is Michael. And would it be possible, I mean, there's a lot of effort and don't do this, but would it be possible to just to follow up on Don's question, and just get a sense of this, say, over the past, like, 8 to 10 year period, how much of this has been done?
8 to 10 years?
Yeah, just curious about this.
Sure.
I know that.
I mean,
Installation.
Of your lab, but it just, I don't know, Don, do you think that's unreasonable to ask for that much?
That's a few years too many, I think, but I'm more interested in going forward to see whether or not it's worth doing the testing by the Bureau. It's mandated by lots of other institutions also.
Okay, so I'll withdraw that request. This is this way what's been done in the current contract is fine.
Okay. Any other questions for Sue?
Yeah, this is Michael again. So with the, again, what kind of follow-up has happened with the samples that say no flame retardant, but actually appear to have them? I mean, it looks like there's only 2 total, but what kind of follow-up do you do with that? And is there any kind of, how do you ensure compliance with these?
We first allotted to them to inform them they failed this aspect, and we submitted the results to our enforcement unit, and so they will take action from there, depending on how a lot of factors, and so they do follow up on those violations.
This is Judy. I have one more follow-up question. Sorry to have so many questions. Do you know if any manufacturer has actually been fined in all these years since this has gone through for failure to accurately disclose flame retardant content? I know there were some, but they couldn't be prosecuted because they were out of the country, or not prosecuted, but fined or whatever.
That I need to check with our enforcement unit to be sure. And so for this violations, I can get back to you after I get back.
Yeah, it might be nice to know, just as you report, like we had 2 failures on accurate disclosure of those, we talked with them and they corrected, it's now fixed, and just as part of the ongoing situation. You're probably always reporting in arrears because you probably have some number of days for them to make corrective action, so whatever period back you need to report on, that would be great.
And sure, yeah, they have some like timeline for them to do correction, and so I'll check with them.
Yeah, I'd like to second what Judy was saying, and I'm just wondering if it might be possible to have somebody who's involved with doing this in your enforcement unit at the next meeting to discuss this kind of thing in more detail. Like, for the companies that failed, because presumably their 2 samples fail, and it's not just those 2 items of furniture. It's probably many thousands that are being sold by that company, and then so I'm just curious as to what actions the Bureau has been taking, just to make sure that this kind of thing is enforced. I mean, this is a labeling law, is a very important measure for a lot of consumers, and one of them to just help ensure the confidence and integrity of this process. It would be good to have a better sense of what the Bureau is actually doing to enforce it and to enforce compliance with it. So would that be possible to have an individual from the enforcement unit who actually does this kind of work available at the next meeting?
Michael, this is Nicholas. It would, yeah, that's possible. So typically when there's a failure, the lab, yeah, like Sue said, it gets sent over to the compliance/enforcement unit. They find the violations and then work with the manufacturer, but typically we will we issue citations for any of the violations that are found. So, I mean, that's sort of the standard. There are always exceptions, but we can definitely get the details of the failures and what's happened and the result of the citations or correspondence with the manufacturer for you.
Yeah, that would be, I would appreciate that, because what I just wonder about is are the citations and fines just incorporated by these companies as the cost of doing business, and they don't necessarily change their practice as a result of that. We've just been seeing that kind of thing happen with many companies in the past with respect to environmental and or safety costs, where they just it costs them less in terms of having these regular violations than to actually comply with the law. So I'm just curious about that. What that looks like.
Yeah, so typically we would, if we had a company or a manufacturer that had a violation or a failure, we would acquire an additional sample maybe a year later, just to make sure that they're, they've made changes to their product and they're not having failures anymore. And then if they are, the fines are progressively steeper. So I think there is an incentive for the manufacturers to clean up, to do the right thing. And we are following up as well, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, up next, we're going to be going over the statistics for licensing, and we have two representatives with us today, Michelle and Jacqueline.
Yes, hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm with the licensing unit, and I'm going to be going over this licensing stats. With regard to the electronic and appliance repair program, we have seen an increase in registrations issued for appliance service dealers and service contract administrators. For electronic service dealers, combination service dealers, and service contract sellers, we show a slight decrease in licenses issued compared to last year. However, we anticipate the market will continue to grow overall. We have been receiving inquiries regarding the expansion to consumer products. SB 1483, which goes into effect January 1st, 2020, defines consumer goods and will extend the Bureau's jurisdiction to include service contracts for all consumer goods other than vehicles. Over on the home furnishing side, we show an increase in licenses issued for furniture retailers, bedding retailers, sanitizers, and importers, including overseas manufacturers. Licenses issued for furniture and bedding retailers, custom upholsterers, supply dealers, manufacturers, wholesalers, and thermal insulation manufacturers show a slight decrease. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Michelle. Jacqueline, next for the home movers licensing.
Good morning. The Bureau has issued 51 household mover permits. We currently have 926 active licensed household movers. Since July of 2018, there has been 89 exams taken with a 67% passing rate. The Bureau is, still conducting examinations for all of Northern California applicants and has contracted with PSI to conduct all Southern California exams in 3 different locations: Burbank, Riverside, and San Diego. In late March, 2 licensed household movers will be volunteering their time to attend a 2-day workshop with the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services to improve the household movers exam and ensure all questions are job-related, current, and valid. The Bureau has also observed an increase in the amount of household mover applications received, and applications are being processed in a timely and efficient manner. The new revised application has now been reviewed and final touches are being made to it. The goal is to have the application online for all interested applicants no later than the end of March. In addition, the Bureau has also been processing quarterly reports, which are financial statements of their gross revenue and which are due every 3 months for a total of 4 quarterly reports yearly. This includes fees, mover reported. That being said, the Bureau has processed 2018 third and fourth quarterly reports and will be mailing out the 2019 first quarterly reports at the end of this month. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Jacqueline. Yes, I have several questions. So first of all, congratulations. It appears that the failure rate is dropping dramatically. If at all possible, it would be helpful to just see an example of what the new exam looks like. I don't know if I can have a copy as a council member, but I would appreciate that. Secondarily, are there 2 separate exams at this point for what we would classify as prime movers and independent contractor operators, or is there only 1 exam?
So we have 4 exams. We have piano, statewide, local, and subhauler, and that's it right now.
Okay. And so at this point, when restoration companies come into the program, they are tested as the local mover?
And depends on what they solicit. So if it's local, if they're doing within a 100-mile radius of their business location, or statewide if they're doing all of California. So, yes, one of the 2.
Have you had any file yet to?
We have.
Yes.
Yes.
How many?
I would say maybe 5.
Okay. And the results.
Sorry, what was the first application? Did you say piano?
Yes, piano, local, statewide, and subhauler. And they're all the same application, the exam. We're actually talking about the household movers exam.
And will the quarterly totals be in future reports, the total revenue collected by quarter?
We could do that for you, yes.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Now we'll have our consumer complaints and enforcement investigations be presented by Winson and Alda.
Hi, good morning. My name is Winston. I'm a compliance analyst with the Bureau, and I'll be presenting the consumer complaint statistics and enforcement statistics. So beginning with the electronic appliance repair consumer complaints, last year we opened 1,019 electronic appliance repair complaints, and we've closed 1,014. And so far this year, we have received 336 electronic and appliance repair complaints and closed 336. For the household furnishings and thermal insulation complaints, we have received 288 and we have closed 281 last year. This year, we've received 100 complaints and we have closed 108. Moving on to the household mover complaints, we have opened up 159 complaints and closed 107. Any questions so far? If not, moving on to enforcement statistics. Last year, the Bureau has ordered ordered 48 telephone disconnects for electronic appliance repair and ordered 17 telephone disconnects for the household furnishings and thermal insulation companies. So far this year, for the electronic appliance repair, we have ordered 14 telephone disconnects, and we have ordered 9 telephone disconnects for the household furnishings companies. For internal cases that we've opened up in the office, last year we've opened 624 cases and closed 705 for electronic appliance repair. For household furnishings, we've opened up 355 cases and closed 388. This year, so far, we opened up 230 cases for electronic appliance repair and closed 260. And for household furnishings, we've opened 135 cases and closed 138. For citation cases, last year we've issued 550 citations against electronic appliance repair, and for house we had last year 305. So far this year, for electronic appliance repair, we have issued 229 citations, and for household furnishings, we have issued 148 citations. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Winston. Now, Alda.
My name is Alda Aguirre. I'm a special investigator for the Bureau. And I'm going to review household mover enforcement and investigation statistics for July 2018 through February 2019. The household mover cases under investigation are 205. The hold hostage situation resolved cases are 28. There are 6 pending. There were 6 that were forwarded to other agents, of 40. The cease letters issued for failure of movers to cease and desist that will result in administrative citations were 42. Investigative subpoenas issued from July to February were 2. And investigations referred to the district attorney. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do. So, first of all, congratulations and thank you to the Bureau for engaging in the hold hostage situation, and a very big success story there. I would say that success story is probably better than any I've seen on the federal side. So congratulate that in support of that. And though related to 13 and the total complaints by category. So we look at the largest bar on that is related to loss damages complaints. So what does that look like for the Bureau?
Okay, for those complaints, for the loss and damages complaints, we look at, what's the process of from A to B in terms of the contract, and to see if the mover has done their due diligence in following the Max 4, following the regulations, and addressing the loss and damages. We do not make any sort of determination on either side saying whose fault it is that caused the damages. We just look at it, if the valuations were offered, if they were chosen, and if the mover followed through in some sort of saying either yes or no, or offer a compromise for the damages or losses. Right.
So regulatory compliance and communication within the timeline issued.
Correct.
Thank you.
If questions,
This is first Brian, I have one quick question.
okay.
On the enforcement statistics, we looked at the internal case investigations, comparing 2017 and 18 to 2018 and 19. I'm assuming 2018 and 19 is one half of the year. It looks like our investigations are down. From the previous year, we had 979. And if it would have been a normal year, we should have about a little over, well, almost 500. We're at 365. Are we doing less investigations now? See where I'm getting my numbers?
Yeah, I see it. I don't necessarily think we're doing less investigations. I think, for one, there are we're higher compliant, definitely on the home furnishing side.
Okay, so that's a good statistic then.
That's good. Yeah, we have more staff, compliance checks, checking up on, unlicensed activity, delinquent licensees. So, we've actually doubled the field staff since I've been here. So the amount of investigations, although
Can I?
on this, sure.
And just to mention, I don't think that this number captures all of the investigations that are conducted. We are conducting a lot of unlicensed investigations that were not referred, and by that I mean we didn't necessarily receive a complaint, but maybe during the course of an investigation, we come across several other unlicensed household movers, which we would consider leads, and we don't open complaints on those investigations. We just open a file and we investigate, gather evidence. We follow the same steps, but I don't think those numbers are captured in these statistics, and we're hoping to change that over the next couple months so that the contacts we're making and all the investigations that we're conducting are captured in the numbers.
Thank you for that, Alda. I was sort of trying to get to that, but not.
No problem.
My mind's not working today.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next up is our legislative and regulatory update from our two policy managers.
Hi, good morning. This is Yafana Lamar. I normally did these as a representative of the department. I am now with the Bureau, but the department ledge was hit with some extremely aggressive deadlines, so they don't have the bandwidth. So I'll be continuing to do legislation for probably this year at least. First, I wanted to give an update on AB 2198 from last year. This was the bill that requires fiscal to include expenditures for special funds. Steve asked what information or to what level the information would be provided, and at that time we didn't know. The fiscal website has been updated and it drills down to department level. So if you're hoping to see fund level, that's not available. So I just want to give you an update. So the Bureau's legislation starts on page 20. The first bill is AB 193 by Patterson. This bill would require the department to conduct a comprehensive review of all its programs, licensing requirements to determine whether the requirements are justified. The department would be required to submit this report to the legislature beginning January 1, 2023, and every 2 years thereafter. This bill would also eliminate the custom upholsterer license type. This bill has since been amended from the version I gave you. The version I included in the packet it's easier to see the amendments that impact the Bureau. So those start on page 11 of the bill. I think it's 30 of your packet. Since that introduced version, this bill, which would have eliminated tree trimmers from the Contractor State License Board and nail technicians from Barbara Cosmo, those were removed from this bill. So this bill was amended to allow those license types to remain. Custom upholsterers is still in this bill. We provided a fiscal, losing this license type would cost the Bureau $110,000 in licensing fees annually, and that's at a minimum. This idea was previously proposed by SB 247 by Senator Morlock in 2017, but that bill did not pass through the first House Policy Committee. Any questions on this bill? Seeing and hearing none. The next bill is AB 613 by Assemblymember Lowe. This bill would allow all DCA programs to raise their fees no more than once every 4 years in an amount not to exceed the Consumer Price Index. Currently, there is a fee range or ceiling in statute for all DCA programs, well, except for household movers. The actual fee is housed in regulations, so each fee requires a regulation package, which now takes a year. If the fee is at the maximum and needs to be raised, the program would need to sponsor legislation first and then do regulations. So this bill is significant in that it would allow the program, as long as they do not have 2 years of reserves, to raise fees consistent with the CPI without going through all that. Any questions? Anybody? No? Steve looks like he wants to say something. Okay. The next bill is AB 1296 by Gonzalez. This bill would enact the Tax Recovery in the Underground Economy Criminal Enforcement Act. This act would create an enforcement program within the Department of Justice to recover state revenue lost due to the underground economy. This program would collaborate and pool resources to prosecute violations resulting from unlicensed activity. This bill would create a governing board made up of law enforcement and DOJ, and investigators from Tax and Fee Administration and Criminal Investigations Unit of the Franchise Tax Board. This bill would also allow the governing board to consult with listed entities in an advisory capacity. Those include the Department of Insurance, Department of Industrial Relations, California Highway Patrol, and within DCA, the department itself, the Bureau of Cannabis Control, and the Contractor State License Board. While this bill does not specifically impact us, I wanted to bring it to your attention because we have significant unlicensed activity in all three practice acts, especially in household movers. So since it's early in the year, I don't know if Steve wants to give the author a call on possibly allowing the Bureau to be one of the named entities that could serve in an advisory capacity. Any questions? Okay, the next bill is AB 1469 by Lowe. This bill would require the Bureau to conduct a stakeholder process to determine whether the Bureau's trade standards need updating to address privacy concerns of connected devices. Connected devices are defined in civil code. It's basically anything that could be connected to the internet or has Bluetooth or an IP address. This could include all electronics that fall under the Bureau's jurisdiction, but it could include smart appliances as well. This came out of Sunset Review, where Assemblymember Lowe was trying to ask the chief a question about privacy concerns, but the question was unclear, and he eventually changed his line of questioning. So he went back and worked on this bill. So this bill is intended to prevent identity theft or data theft that could be sold for marketing purposes. And this would be data that's obtained by repair techs who have access to the data in the course of their duties. So this would require us to do a stakeholder process to determine if our trade standards need to be updated to address that. Any questions? Okay. The next one is SB 358, Committee on Transportation. This bill would add vehicles that are regulated by the Bureau to the vehicles for which the Department of Motor Vehicles may regulate for safe operation. The PUC was already listed as one of the entities. This is a maintenance of the code type change. The Committee on Transportation, who is the author, has confirmed that this is their omnibus bill, so any other amendments will be non-substantive. Last year, the CHP submitted proposed cleanup amendments that DCA reviewed and confirmed as non-substantive. However, the Bureau will be watching this bill to make sure that it stays that way. Any questions?
No, we're engaged and in favor of this bill. It's just a cleanup of some language that didn't get passed through in SB 19.
Right, okay, that's good to know. The final bill on the final state bill on the agenda is SB 391. This is a Bureau proposed bill. This bill would allow special investigators and supervising special investigators to issue notices to appear for misdemeanor offenses of the Household Mover Act. This proposal is modeled after CSLB's authority to do the same because their licensing and enforcement programs are very similar to what we are required to do under the Household Movers Act. The Board of Barbering and Cosmetology also has this authority. This will be used when law enforcement resources are not available and during stings or sweeps. This bill was double referred to Business and Professions and Public Safety. It's scheduled to be heard either March 25th or I was told April 1st, but April 1st is a holiday, so I'm not sure about that. But it's going to be heard very soon by Senate Business and Professions. On this bill, because it's a Bureau proposed bill, we can actually ask for support. We would appreciate letters or even in-person testimony because this is something that, a question that I've been getting from the legislature and we received from Senator Monning's office was, how does industry feel about this? So if you could, write letters to the author and to the committees, we would greatly appreciate that. Any questions? Okay, on to the federal bill. Senate Bill 3551 by Senator Wicker. This is the bill I reported on last year that would make the Bureau's TB 117 2013 the federal standard. There is also a House bill that would do the same, House HR 4220. That bill is identical except for it does not specifically name bedding products, furniture, children's products like the Senate bill does. There's no hearing date as of this morning. I double checked, but it has been referred to the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. So I'll keep you guys updated on if that happens. There are two bills that were not included in your packets. One was my mistake, and one was introduced too late to be included. So I want to cover those really quickly. AB 469 by Lowe. This bill would add household movers to Section 27 of the Business and Professions Code. That section requires us to report enforcement and disciplinary actions on all licensees. However, we do not use the legacy systems that all other programs in DCA use. We use the PUC's database. So it seems like they proposed this as an omni-type change, but it is not. We are currently going through the business modernization program or process. It just started this month. And that would be to adopt a new licensing system So any change to what we currently have would be very costly, so we will be reporting that to the legislature. If they feel like it's worth it to require us to report this for a couple years until we get the new IT system, then, that's going to be their policy decision, but we at least want to make sure the Bureau is covered for costs.
Who's the author on that?
Senator or Assemblymember Lowe.
Thank you.
And the last one, this is the bill that was introduced too late to include. It's AB 1811 by the Committee on Communications and Conveyance. This was also intended to be an omni bill. However, this bill would rename the Foreign Motor Carriers of Household Goods and Passengers Act to the Foreign Motor Carriers of Passengers Act. So it would remove household goods. It would also remove any reference to household goods. And what that act currently does is it gives express and explicit authority to the Bureau to require registration by interstate movers. So if they took that away, we would still have implied authority, but if we can have explicit authority, that's always preferred. I talked to the committee and they said they did not intend for this to have policy impacts on the Bureau. They thought this was a cleanup bill. So they are working with the PUC on how we can fix that. So, any questions on that bill? I can send you Steve and Chris. Oh, you have it?
I haven't reviewed it yet, but I got it yesterday.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to make sure I brought it to your attention in case you hadn't seen it. Any questions on that?
What is the reasoning behind having the PUC involved?
Because it's in their code. So we wouldn't normally submit a proposal to change another code.
So we're in support of retention of that authority and language, but the transfer of it to the Bureau. So that's the sort of thing that we should be going to the member and saying, hey, unstrike, but strike where it says PUC, and is that sort of language that can?
Well, I talked to them about that. Since this is a committee bill, they can't, or they wouldn't propose changes to a code section that they have no authority over.
Mm-hmm.
So they have authority to change the Public Utilities Code. They do not have authority to change the Business and Professions Code. So that's why we have some working out we need to do to see if we can work with the PUC on maybe keeping it until we're able to get it added to our Practice Act, or we can add it to regulations if we have authority, but we are still trying to work that out.
And generally, their legislative office is the easiest of their group to communicate with. Is that accurate? That's what I've seen.
This is the first time I've had to talk to conveyance and communications. So, normally at the department, I dealt with business and professions, so I'm not aware of how easy they are. But they did give me they referred me to somebody at the PUC to talk to.
Yeah. From their legislative office in Sacramento, right?
The PUCs, yes.
Yes.
They gave me Michael Mullaney.
Okay.
And unless there are any questions, that's it for legislation.
Yeah, this is Don Lucas. I have a question about the federal bill, 3551. Has the CTSB taken a stand on it?
There hasn't been a letter submitted, but I believe Nicholas spoke to them about it. Am I wrong?
To my knowledge, they have not made a statement on this, on the SOFA bill.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Those on the phone? Okay, that's it for legislation.
Thank you. Diana Godinez will give us regulatory update.
The Bureau will be updating California Code of Regulations, Sections 1380 and 1381 within the Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Program, Sections 2767 and 2768 within the Electronic and Appliance Repair Program, and will adopt language within the the Household Movers Program to conform with the requirements of Assembly Bill 2138. The bill was signed in 2018 and goes into effect July 1st of 2020. The intent of this bill is to reduce the licensing and employment barriers for people who are rehabilitated. The changes to the sections mentioned will amend the substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria as specified in the bill, which will prohibit the denial of a license because the applicant was convicted of a crime as specified or due to the acts underlying the conviction. If the applicant has a certificate or made a showing of rehabilitation, was granted clemency, or the conviction was dismissed or expunged. So we will be submitting those to the department, and the department will be updating those regulations on our behalf or on behalf of the boards and bureaus. And that's it on the first one. Has any questions? We'll move on to the next one. The proposed amendments for California Code of Regulations, Sections 1374 and 1374.3 within the Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Program were approved by the Office of Administrative Law and went into effect on January 22nd, 2019. These amendments remove the requirement in that seating furniture used in public occupancies are to meet the flammability and labeling requirements of Technical Bulletin 133. So as of January 22nd, all upholstered furniture, including seating furniture, must meet Technical Bulletin 117/2013 requirements. The final statement of reasons addressing all public comments received during the public comment period, and the order of adoption containing the final language for these sections are available on the website for everyone to review. Any comments on or any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to the Section 100 rulemaking proposal. The Bureau submitted a Section 100 rulemaking proposal to the Office of Administrative Law in February. Section 100 refers to the California Code of Regulation, which allows for changes to text as long as those changes are without regulatory effect. It also allows us to make changes without having to go through the regular rulemaking process or the public hearing process. In our case, the Section 100 was submitted to conform with Senate Bill 1483, which was our statutory name change. So soon, once it's been approved, you'll see all references in our regulations removed from our former name to our new name. This includes references made on the law and flammability labels in Section 1126, any documents incorporated by reference, and the printed language that must appear on the receipts and invoices in Sections 2721 and 2723 on the electronic and appliance side. So the Office of Administrative Law has 30 calendar days to review the rulemaking package and make a determination. Is there any questions on that? I'll move on to 6, the Rules and Regulations Books update. All three programs have been updated to include all legislation adopted in 2018. Mainly, this really includes Senate Bill 1483 and AB 2998. The new language related to the repeal, also includes the language related to the repeal of Technical Bulletin 133. So the booklets are currently available on our website for view. And then when Section 100 is approved by Office of Administrative Law, they will be updated with the language, and then the booklets will be available for distribution. Okay. Now move on to the recap of our workshops. There's no questions. Okay, so our law label regulation workshop was held on February 5th. Attendees have participated in person or via teleconference. We had a great turnout, and I want to thank everybody for their participation, their input, and their feedback. Your input and feedback are greatly appreciated as this assists with the success of our rulemaking activities. So I do encourage participation in the future. During the workshop, we discussed the cleanup of existing language, the Bureau's name change, which require industry to update their law labels with a new name by the end of this year, the addition of more definitions and terminologies to help assist with the helping with the industry what's required on the labels, the inclusion of the plumage labels in our regulations, and we asked for input on making changes to the filling material percentage requirements. So we still are finalizing the minutes for this workshop. They will be available on our website once they are final. And we are, like Chief Oliver said, we're hoping to have the draft language ready by summer or fall.
I have one question. Is the Bureau still accepting feedback or comments as you are finalizing the regulations, or should we just wait for the regulations and then comment on that? The latter?
Yes, the latter.
Thank you.
So we'll post the draft language, and then through the public comment period, you can make comments.
Any other questions?
Okay, this is Yafana again. I am going to talk about the Household Movers Workshop. We held a regulations workshop on February 7th for household movers. Participation was outstanding. We did not expect the room to be full, so we were happy to see that level of participation. Your input is imperative for us to develop regulations that meet the needs of the industry, so it's very appreciated. We presented the Bureau's goals to adopt an enforcement rulemaking package with a target submission date of May 2019, so in a couple months. And this is in line with the need to implement substantially related criteria and rehabilitation criteria to meet the mandate of AB 2138 that Diana just discussed. We also discussed fees. Business and Professions Code 19228 requires the Bureau to engage in public workshops and stakeholder process to determine what the best fee schedule, fee types would be. So we discussed advertising for economic research specialists. That is currently online. That the application is currently being advertised on the jobs.ca.gov website. For feedback from industry, generally the majority of the feedback was about tariff, that changes need to be made to the tariff. We will be covering that in a later rulemaking package, but right now, so we can get our enforcement program ground and running. We will not be having another one before we submit language. However, since this is the first rulemaking package, I want to say if you have other feedback, if industry or feel free to contact me if we have not submitted. This is different in that there is actually proposed language for the labeling, which is why we have to wait until it's published. But for household movers, I'm still developing the language in the Eyesore, so I'd be happy to hear any suggestions. Any questions?
Thank you both for those updates. Is there a comment on the phone?
Yeah, no, I had a question. My name's Internet Stein. With the household movers, is there any areas that affect environmental health?
No, as an employer in California, movers have to follow all workplace safety laws.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is because the movers are the first line of to those taking the courses. One suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If you're okay, so moving on to number 8, discussion of the update of the max rate tariff.
For this, slow, later than our expectation, but we're very pleased with the product. And now that you've been through one cycle, our expectations are that this will be kind of a mid-January process. So yes, to have that, and we don't have any disagreement with the slightly simpler format as opposed to revised pages, that when you put out a tariff and the front page says 2019, that the content is applicable to that year. And so I would say that we're very pleased with it and pleased with just, the substantive change of item 475. We think that was extremely positive and good for consumers as well as legal industry. So all we have to say is thank you. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. We, like you said, now that we've gone through the process and we learned what it is, I feel like the process is a lot more difficult than it needs to be, so I'm going to be revising that, so it'll be simpler and we will be able to get it out sooner in every year from now on.
All right. Item number 9, Yafana.
Back again, this is Yafana Lamar. So there was a study by Oklahoma State that showed that insulation that exhibits resistance to combustion provides no benefit in preventing the start or spread of fire when used in the foundation of buildings. In response to those findings, the California Fire Marshal proposed to allow untreated polystyrene boards to be exempt from the flammability requirements of the California building standards when used in the foundations. We would seek to polystyrene insulation used in accord with Fire Marshal's proposal to be exempt from the Bureau's combustion resistance standard, thereby allowing its sale in California. To do that, we would need to adopt regulations to change our regulations. This puts thermal insulation regs back on our radar to change them. The Fire Marshal's proposal was approved, and because our thermal regulations are housed in Title 24, which are governed by the California Building Commission, we would be going through their regulatory process regulations. So I have an intervening adoption cycle, 18 months, so we will be working with the commission to determine which is best for us, if we should be submitting a regulatory package in 18 months or in 3 years.
Can you say the name of the commission again, Yafana?
The California Building Commission. Any questions on that or on thermal regs? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, are there any public comments on items not listed on the agenda?
Yeah, I have one comment or suggestion related to the regulation of the restoration operations. And, very pleased to hear that 5 people have started the process. But most of these businesses' primary engagement is with the insurance industry. And I would encourage some outreach to the insurance commissioner to advise them of this regulatory change so that they ensure that those people they regulate are only dealing with legal and licensed operators.
Thank you for that recommendation. If there are no other comments, are there future agenda item recommendations from those on the phone or here? If not, then we will, I think the meeting date that we agreed to was July 18th. And we'll see you all then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.